All right, just about ready to go.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Hey, afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we are for another edition of the New Media Show, 1 week away from NAB. So, actually, a little more than a week, but we'll be preparing to leave next week for NAB.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's coming up quick, and we're doing a on-stage live session of this show at the event.
So I've been a busy. I mean, it's just been crazy nuts, but very, very productive over the past couple of weeks. And my calendar schedule looks like it. But one thing I'm starting to feel, and it's only a feeling, and I titled the show this way today. Is it dog eat dog in podcasting right now?
Well, the question is, when hasn't it been
Well,
dog eat dog in the podcasting space?
I feel, it appears, and again, maybe I'm just, I'm hypersensitive when I look at stuff. It feels as if some folks are, starting to pick sides, and maybe in instances where they shouldn't pick sides. And I find it curious, indeed. And you just always wonder if there's cash involved in some of this. So, I don't know. We'll just have to look at long-term relationships and see where things are going.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat to be expected that in a down economy and resources are not flowing around as much more freely as they were just maybe 6 months or a year ago, that people might be, hunkering down and protecting their turf more and more, just as a survival instinct, I think, to some degree. And that's probably expected. I think we saw that happen back in 2008, 2009 too. But I think the stakes are a lot higher now, obviously, from all the investment that's been made in this medium, and the expectations have definitely escalated. So I can see it happening that way. Yeah. And I'm probably a little bit of an anti-example of that, pulling back from being on a side. I'm kind of on the side of everybody right now as much as I can. So, and trying to push the industry forward. Today was my last board meeting call for the Podcast Academy. So,
did you
I'm
not
gonna
get
be on that
reelected?
board. No, I did not get reelected, and that's okay with me. I served for 3 years, and now it's time for someone else to step up. So,
Well, that's good. Well, it frees up your time. It wasn't like you were getting paid for that anyway.
no, that's true. That's true. And
So-
a lot of the founding board members of the organization that have been with the board for 3 years, like myself, most of them are leaving. So it's a fresh group on that board now. So,
And we will see what they do. I've been a little bit critical as of late. So we'll see, and that I hope the organization can move beyond just being an award show. I really do.
That'll always be the kind of core foundation of what it's known for. I think the goals of the organization right now are to expand more globally. They're involved in an event in Mexico City coming up here in June. So there's an effort to have a partnership with the podcast show in London. So I think that there is a movement towards making the organization more global in its scope, and where that takes that organization is a question mark right now.
Well, more global in scope, but is it just to have more awards? That's the thing I wonder.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with trying to expand the membership base of the organization, and I think that outside of the United States has felt a little bit excluded. So if there's programs that could be initiated that happen outside of the U.S., symbolized by this Mexico City event and being a part of the podcast show for the first time, I think is symbolic to the effort to reach outside of the boundaries of the U.S.
So again, to what means? All right, let's grow the membership, and then what are you going to do?
Well, it's been focused on the core pieces of the organization for a long time. The educational side, professional development,
But
and the
that-
mentorships.
We're not seeing that.
Well, okay. Well, then what is the potential that organization? It's not going to do like what the podcast standards project is going to do.
I
It's
think
not
the
gonna do
majority of
that.
people,
Mhm.
me included, that pay our dues every year, think
Mhm.
that all they're doing for the podcast at this point is an award show.
Okay.
And we just got
So
to
why is that wrong, Todd?
if that's all they're going to do, then
Yep.
then be clear about it. But that wasn't what the goal was when the organization started. And by the way, 12,000 sats
Mhm.
from Dave Jones. We're lit and live. TPA seems like a self-licking ice cream cone.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think we just had bigger expectations for the Podcast Academy.
What is the expectations?
The expectations was education,
Which that they're actually doing.
but I don't see anything come across any email or anything talking about education. Where are they getting that information to the membership?
I mean, where
Is
what
that?
are they
Where?
doing?
Yeah, where and what? I'm sorry, I don't see it. Yeah, there's a Slack channel, where people self-congratulate themselves for being nominated for the awards, but I don't know. I just, who are they helping at this point? That's my concern. Is it, if it's just going to be an awards group, great. I'm out, but I don't know. I just don't see them out advocating for podcasting beyond the award show. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, they have a regular flow of events and webinars and things like that.
But where is that getting announced?
Getting announced in the newsletters and off of their website? And,
I'm gonna tell you,
in Pod News.
Had nary a clue.
Okay. But I mean, they have a full-time, education director. that
What?
works-
This is
So-
news. It's like, how come we don't know about this? They're not communicating that they're doing that. If I don't know that this is happening,
Well, I can't really address that, Todd. 'cause
Okay.
It's been going on for a couple of years now. So
did anybody else that's listening to the show know that they're doing educational webinars at TPA? I'd love to
Todd,
see
I've
what they're.
actually done them myself.
How
so
many people are attending those? How many people are attending those events?
I don't know.
If they should be okay. Well, I think this is part of the problem, and this is what I keep hearing from a lot of people. What are they doing for podcasters? I don't think a lot of us are engaged in they're not communicating that well. You're out, so it's not your issue anymore. But
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that I think that the accusations that are being made towards the organization are maybe a little unfair. So that would be my pushback on it. Would be that I've been on the board for 3 years now, and I know exactly what the organization is doing. So it just may not be reaching your visibility, and that's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed. I agree with you.
yeah,
But these are significant programs that the organization is investing in and actively doing on a regular basis. So they need to do a better job of communicating that, I guess.
I was part of their mentor program the first
Mhm.
year, and had 2 meetings with a podcaster,
Mhm.
and that was it. And okay, what else are we supposed to be doing? There was no feedback to organization, nothing. It was just, I'm on the website now looking at events. Masterclass.
Mhm.
Online member socials. Never heard about those.
Well, they've been going on for years now. So on a monthly basis at a minimum, right?
Then they need to start. They need to start communicating some of this, because I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it. You know, and I'm a member. I read their newsletters. So
Okay.
says on their events page, most of the events are labeled members only. Seems like a homeowners association.
Right.
12,000. You know, you do have to be a member, you know, to attend these events. I guess that's.
Well, I mean,
you-
some of the events are public and some of them are for members. And if you're going to build a membership organization, you have to have events that are for your members,
Right.
Else there's no point in joining, right?
And at the same moment, I'm definitely concerned even with the PSP. Okay, now we've kind of had this coming out party, got the website up. Now where does the business happen? You know, where is the business of the group going to happen? And are we going to have just everything happening on GitHub where the geeks hang out? And I don't think GitHub's a great place to do technical discussions, but I don't think it's a place to grow an organization. So, you know, I think at this point they want to be open and showing all this stuff. But at some point, if there is going to be, because right now the standard is a proposal, it's not. So who and what are going to vote on and all this stuff? I guess, you know, that needs to be formed up at this point. But again, we're all busy, so it's not just. It's tough. It's tough to do these organizations and get them building growth. But I just think that the Podcast Academy could do a better job.
Oh, sure. I don't think you'd hear anybody on the board disagree with you. I think that they're actively trying to come up with ideas, and that's one of the things that was discussed on the board call today was new initiatives, ways that we can be creative in the market to reach more people and to benefit more podcasts.
So are they taking input from the membership on types of concerns like I have?
Yeah, I would say, you know, the new there's 8 more new board members from outside that have joined.
Have they announced who those people are?
I don't believe that they've made an official announcement yet on who they are yet.
They inducted people into the board today and they haven't made an announcement. Isn't that a problem?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. It's just they haven't announced it yet because that board is just now coming together and trying to think about the processes of them getting involved. And so,
but they had a big voting session, and now we're okay. What's the results of the voting? When did the membership get to know that?
I believe they're going to announce it probably this week. Probably, I would imagine.
I got you. I'm getting a little,
you know, who's on the board. So
right. I'm getting a little crackle in my ear. I don't know why. Do you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
Something on my side.
You know, I think that your point about the Podcast Standards Project is a valid one too. What's the real business objective of that organization too? And does it serve a purpose beyond just a small group of companies?
Well, I wrote the membership document, so I keep asking them, is this going to be applicable? Are we actually going to have is this going to be announced?
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to be realistic about things too. That it takes time to do things.
That's true.
First of all, and it also takes, you know, dedication and focus, and it usually happens from a small group of people that do most of the work. So sometimes those people can be a little overwhelmed. And,
we're busy.
And to try and make an impact on things like this is not an easy project, and it may be difficult right now for a lot of organizations, and PSP is probably a good example of it, of getting financial support from an industry that's maybe hurting a little bit right now. And it's the same challenge that the Podcast Academy has as well.
So there's 1,001 sats from Mike Dell listening while live doing billing. And Dave says your audio is a bit fuzzy. Yes, I'm going to go swipe a pot and then I'll be right back. So Rob, if you want to keep talking for 30 seconds
Okay.
while I do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge that we're all going to face here in this, in the next 6 months to 18 months, is that resources are going to be a little more limited, and organizations that are trying to do good or trying to make changes or trying to grow and things like that may struggle a little bit over the next period of time here as the economy contracts. And like Todd was saying, there's more companies that are, thinking a little bit more on the shrinking side, not the expansion side right now. From a staffing perspective, there's a lot more people that are out of work, which means that there's fewer people bringing in an income right now. So the investment in the podcasting space is a little under pressure right now, because resources are increasingly becoming more limited.
Yeah, I think that's maybe it's a lot better. I don't know. Those of you listening, let me know.
Sounds fine to me, Todd.
Yeah, there's
not hearing
something
anything.
going on. I've got an ear that it's just driving me crazy because I hear a crinkle crinkle, but maybe it's just on the receive side.
Yeah, because Todd, I saw in Pod News that you look at, like, I just did a session on Clubhouse on podcasting just a few minutes before I joined you here, but I guess Spotify is shutting down its Clubhouse clone.
Yeah, that was wise money invested, wasn't it?
57 million. They bought this platform back in March of 2021, so 2 years ago.
Did it even have a I don't even know what platform they bought. I didn't know they had a Clubhouse clone.
Yeah, I didn't really know that much about it either. And I guess Reddit had one too. It was called Reddit Talk, which closed last month. And even Facebook had a live audio rooms platform that I didn't really even know about either. So, that closed in December, I guess. So, but Clubhouse seems to be charging ahead. Their software has been updated, and there's people putting rooms together over there, and it seems to be moving forward.
I'm kind of shocked, actually, because I haven't heard anybody being on Clubhouse in a year.
There's a regular flow of podcast topics going on over there.
Who's doing them?
Jody Cagle does quite a few over there. She's a voiceover artist, so that's the session that I was involved with today. Was talking about podcasting topics.
Is Steve and his group still over there, or have they quit?
I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked for. Was it Club Pod? I think is what it was called. Yeah, I haven't actually looked over there for his network, but yeah, they've changed the software a lot. So I had a hard time figuring out even how to mute my microphone. So it was just one of those things of kind of getting back in the groove of doing, a show or two over there.
Right.
And I think it was good. And, but I do think it's interesting, we're seeing a pullback from investment and people shutting things down, I mean, so, that may not be the end of this. I think as you look to the next 18 months, we could see a lot of companies in the podcasting space just kind of like say,
it's not the end of it, because I'm getting prospectuses. Are you interested in buying? I'm
that's
seeing
usually what happens. Right.
And some of these have been, I can't believe they're still actually operating. So I think
you think about the combination of that with increasing interest and investment in AI technology, is that we may be seeing the movement towards making existing technology workflows obsolete as part of this transition as well. So it's a time of big change.
I've been playing around a lot with a lot of different platforms to try to get a feel. And I don't want to really reveal everything that I've determined, but I think I said it in the last show, all of those services have about 12 months, because the average user.
I mean, a lot of them are features, not whole companies, right?
That's right.
That's the challenge that I think AI faces in the market right now, is that none of them are a complete solution to anything.
No. And they're less than perfect.
Yeah, well, it's based on less than current information. If they're tapping into the number 4 platform, the GPT-4 platform is
Well,
old data.
very few people actually have access to ChatGPT-4 API. Most people are running on 3.5. A few
Right.
people are getting access to ChatGPT.
So it's actually worse.
And ChatGPT-4 is incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive.
It's a
So-
for-profit company now. So, I think we talked about in this last episode
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But
But
it's got a
again,
profit motive behind it
from a
now.
podcaster standpoint, it's actually not for me anyway, and my production flow. It's costing me time. It's
Yeah.
not a time saver.
Right.
Because
Well, it changes your workflow
and
in a significant way, and it may add elements that you had unintended,
well,
consequences.
it adds a lot of more time.
Right.
I figured it adds 30 minutes or more to the production, and the results are no better than what I could do personally.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, because if you're trying to achieve uniqueness, right, or maybe all of our skills are not that refined around how to query an AI platform to do what we need. That may be the magic sauce to all this is
Well,
the
again,
questions to ask
I
and how
think
to ask them.
I think once people get a clue on how to ask the great questions, they're not going to need all these other tools. They're just going to
Go to one interface to do everything.
Yeah.
right?
Well, they're going to use the ChatGPT interface and do
Yeah.
90% of everything they need to be done. So again, it's going to boil down really to a couple of things, and companies that, again, I'm not going to talk about where I think it's going, but how are we going to help podcasters grow? Is this going to help podcasters grow? And there's only one thing that I think currently is going to help podcasters grow in using this technology, but it's not on the production side. It's not on the show notes creation side. That is not where this is going to help people.
I can see a few areas where it could help, but
Well, you have to be incredibly careful and trusting something to write your show notes and write your episode title.
Mhm.
And
it's got to be smarter than you, is what it comes down to.
what it is right now,
Right.
it's not. It's just if you're a little bit lazy, it maybe helps you from a not having to think process, and
And that's not necessarily good.
right. If it's actually giving me something better than I could have come up with myself, then that's okay. But I think a lot of content creators will become dependent upon it in a wrong way. And this thing is driving me crazy. I have to take the right earbud out because it's buzzing in my ear. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Todd. I think that there are some danger areas of being too reliant on this AI technology, especially at this stage of the game.
Mhm.
I'm
Too
just
early.
not sure that it's really ready to do what I think a lot of people would like it to do. But I do see some promise there around maybe eliminating very repetitious and unnecessary tasks. Not as a replacement for the podcaster 100%, but more just workflows. But I don't know if that really requires a lot of AI
But
technology.
most
to actually do
podcasters
that.
don't have a workflow per se. If you're doing an interview show, what are you doing? You're prepping some questions, right? That's your workflow. You're doing the interview, and you're
Well,
editing.
You're doing a lot of, you should be doing a lot of research.
I don't think most podcasters do an incredible amount of research.
And that's where this technology could help.
Could.
If it's current.
Well,
That's
you
the
have
problem.
you have to go. Here's the thing: you have to go out and pull a bunch of stuff,
Right.
and do a bunch of research to know what to feed it. So you have to do the research if you want to feed it the right stuff to get the right output. So what?
And then you're kind of
Right.
there's no point in doing that.
Right,
then.
because you've already read the research, and yeah, maybe it's going to write you 10 questions.
So all you're going to do is give the AI kind of learnings that can help make it better, but it's not necessarily helping you.
Yeah, well, it might come up with 10 questions they ask the guest,
Yeah.
from that data. But if you just ask it to do something raw without providing any input, that's
Yeah, because if you give it current information and it's basing its query on older 2-year-old information, that you're not going to get what you are hoping to get out
and
of it.
it doesn't know everything about everybody.
No, look at the error that it made between us
Right.
just on the last episode that we
And because we
Did a
didn't
query on.
feed it anything, but
Right.
if you feed it your bio and you feed it your Wikipedia page and you feed it 5
Well, what's the
articles
point
you've
of that?
written, well, if you can, that's again, you have to
Right.
feed it a bunch of information before it then gurgitates it all out and says, "Oh yeah, here's 10 questions to ask."
I mean, well, what's it going to do? Rewrite it? Is that what it's going to do?
No, it
somehow that's
could
an improvement?
it could rewrite an article on them for sure. It could rewrite the bio, but
I
that's
guess
not
it depends on how bad of a writer you are. It might be better grammar. Who knows?
but it's I have definitely found some terrific UK work use cases in the work environment that don't necessarily cross over to the podcast environment. But again, I think within a year, everyone's going to be using these tools to a certain extent on their own. And again, the companies that are trying to do a flow, if they haven't got something in place today, like Capshow or other places like that, they're never going to catch up. Because those platforms now have to do something that is going to be way above and beyond anything that will be able to be obtained through just a query.
Well, yeah, I mean, Capshow is a good example of using your data and the AI technology to create something that's just for your show,
Right.
and that's it's not inputting in a GPT-4 a very generic question. It's basing it on
Right.
your real data, and
Yep.
that's a difference, and that is a better potential solution.
But there was
I mean, if
one. There's one
Right.
system that I was looking at. And I'm not going to name any names here because I'm playing with half a dozen systems.
Yeah.
That when fed this show and my other show, my tech show, it flagged stuff on my tech show that it considered to be not brand safe. And I specifically said Elon Musk, and that immediately flagged as not brand safe. It was red. And different things I said during my show, it flagged as not brand safe. Now, I don't swear in my show. I cover news topics. I give an opinion. There's nothing super controversial about what I say in my podcast. I just inform and give my opinion. Well, the system that I was testing, flag, and I'm like, okay, so this system is saying that these portions of my show are not brand safe. And it pissed me off because it was wrong. There was nothing that I was saying in that commentary that was not brand safe. And
so what you're saying, Todd, is that the AI, from what you were saying, had a little bit of a political bias.
Oh, absolutely. Unbelievable. And so what happens? This is the scary part. What happens when content creators start using this technology and they're looking at this AI generated score and say, "Oh, I can't talk about Elon Musk anymore. Oh, I can't talk about this. And all of a sudden there's a list of 25 things that you don't talk about in your show anymore, that you want to talk about in your show anymore, but you can't because the stupid system says this show's no longer brand safe." That is a major problem.
It creates a form of self censorship, actually.
Right.
What it creates an atmosphere where you feel like you can't talk about. And this is an issue that's been going on with YouTube for a long time, and why we're seeing shows bifurcate their publishing process to do some of their show on YouTube and then the last half of their show on like a Rumble or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
They feel like they can't talk about certain topics on specific platforms. And that gets back to that example that you just gave us.
So, and I saw some stuff today about Brian Barletta saying, don't do baked in no more. And, all these things. And I'm just like, that's a whole nother content topic, but it's like 90. Okay.
Yeah. It's this move towards doing everything as dynamic ad insertion. Right.
Right. And, but here's the thing. And this is the thing that can't get through people's heads. And no one wants to admit it. And I've said this number 1,000 times on this show. 90% of podcasts globally get 90% of their lifetime downloads in the first 96 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I going to change a model that has worked for 18 years for 90% of the shows that bake something in, leave it in? A show that doesn't have long tail has no reason to go in and rebuild a podcast.
Right.
No reason. None. Zero.
Well, and it does kind of tend to cut out maybe some methodologies that maybe smaller shows can do to monetize too. Go out and sell sponsorship or something like that, and not have to use this advanced technology to run a sponsorship campaign in their show. Just do a host endorsement.
And who are we feeding? We're feeding the machine that's coming up with all this crap. That is now scoring shows,
right,
and deciding what's brand safe and what isn't. It's broke. In the examples I have seen so far, it's broke. No one's talking about. Most podcasters are not, that I'm sure they're running on some of these platforms, have no idea the scoring their shows have been given by whatever platform they're integrated with. And if they knew, if they had access to that, maybe they do, and maybe they're self-censoring. Scary times that people are making modifications to their show because they're afraid they're going to offend an advertiser.
Right. They changed the terminology to describe this. I know when we talk about this, we talk about as brand safety, which is true, and that's
brand
kind of how
suitability.
but now it's brand suitability,
right?
Which kind of diffuses the emotional aspect.
Well, it's the same thing.
Versus
it's the same thing.
Unsafe.
It's the same
right,
thing.
But it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of takes the emotion out of it because people have an emotional reaction to being safe or being unsafe, right? So if you say suitability, that's like, okay, we all feel good about this.
Well, until your suitability is a D or E or an F.
Right. Or you're at the wrong end of the chart, right?
And if you say Elon Musk on your show, you automatically make the next 5 minutes of your podcast non-suitable based upon some algorithm that someone has programmed into it that deems Elon Musk as toxic at this point for advertisers.
Yeah.
And when you're having
that's a very political view, because if you look at Elon Musk objectively, he's not really that partisan.
How's your Tesla stock price doing? Pretty good, isn't it?
It's doing okay. Yeah.
That's right.
And my car is actually doing wonderful. I haven't had any problems with it.
So this is where I get leery of some of this tech, because again, the small percentage of shows that are going to be using this, and as soon as you drag smaller shows into it, then you change the dynamic of the podcasting space forever, and it's not a good thing. This is
and I think, Todd, the bigger agenda here is we are starting to turn over kind of human thought and human processes to a computer to do for us,
if you so choose.
Right. And your example that you gave about the bias of that platform.
Right.
So at the end of the day, are we going to see a chat GPT R and a chat GPT D, right? So if you're a Republican and you use the chat GPT R, if you're a Democrat, use the chat GPT D. And I hope we don't get there.
Well, let's hope that people understand that they still have a brain, and
Right.
that mushy
that's
that mushy matter between our ears is may not be as fast as some of this AI stuff, but it's still, hopefully, until everyone gets programmed.
well,
So
Todd, and I think that's what was, that letter that was put out by all those AI scientists, cautioning that we should put on a pause on the development of this technology was really driven based on concerns around AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence capability of other platforms other than Chat GPT, because there are other AI
right,
platforms that are being developed out there that are not public.
so here's the bone on that. China's not going to stop.
No.
No,
Yeah.
and
Right.
they're not going to stop. There's
And
no,
Russia's not going to stop,
no,
and
in
Korea's
some
not going to stop.
in
And
some
right.
national lab in the United States, they're not going to stop.
Mm-mm.
No.
It's a national. It's probably a DoD project.
Oh, I'm
is what it
sure.
is.
Oh, I
Right.
bet.
Yeah, because there's
I love to be
national
right
security
into that.
issues. There's national security issues around this technology. So it's going to be hard to put a pause on it, but it is a little bit of a red flag to me to see that many AI scientists raising their hand going, we're a little concerned here.
Right.
About the direction of this and how out of control it could get.
Oh, I don't think it's going to escalate to there's something serious that happens, and maybe we'll all be dead. So it's hard to say what's going to happen. It's maybe
It could be a couple years, 10 years out, who knows, before we really see the full implications of this. But clearly, if there's computer intelligence that is far beyond human intelligence, and that artificial intelligence has controls into all sorts of elements of the economy and the infrastructure and all that stuff, you can see how that could kind of cause a problem for humans.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Internet of Things becomes an Internet of weapons. So
it's interesting. It's as we talk about this, I just got an invite to an AI Insider Summit. This is a invitation only event with limited capacity. So how did they get my name? That thought I would be wanting to go to the location where they say, please do not advertise where this is at. So it's just like, okay.
So is it a podcast related thing or just general AI?
Because I've been talking about it in my show and geek and nerding out. So I ended up on some list.
Mm-hmm.
Literally the email just came in 13 minutes ago as I'm looking at my inbox. So it's, okay. So who derived that I would be a good candidate to come to this Insider Summit?
Probably AI.
Right, probably. But going to buy me an airline ticket too?
Yeah, but I don't think that you were really talking about AI back in September of 2001.
No.
So that's
So what model did they pull that from?
Right.
So again, from a podcasting standpoint, here's the key. An AI is not. Maybe if you have it write you a script, maybe it'll make you a better podcaster. But
I guess it could, Todd, depending on how unskilled you are.
But maybe it's good for writing talking points about a particular topic if you are in a niche.
Oh.
But again, please, we have to use our own brains here. Keep personal. We don't want to turn into bots. And we really don't.
Just tools of the AI,
right?
Which I think is the bigger worry. Is that all we do is we don't think for ourselves anymore. We just rely on the artificial intelligence to think for us, and that's
I'm kind of watching to see if something. So one of the experiments I'm doing with ChatGPT-4 is I feed it something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come back 2 or 3 days later and I ask it about what I fed it in a new query. and I try to figure out, did it learn
From what you gave it before.
for what I gave
right?
it? So, it so far it doesn't appear to have. But
Yeah, I
the-
don't believe that it's processing new information, but I can't imagine that it isn't capturing all these queries.
Right. And then, so here's the thing. All right. Let's say, well, let me go put my evil hat on. Let's say, as a business intelligence standpoint, I ask it someday, what is certain competitor doing in the podcasting space to build a competitive edge against my company? And what if someone at that other company has been using this to feed it information about what they're doing and helping it to derive ideas? Will that give me business intelligence back that it's learned about the company? Will it give me trade secret? Dun, da, da, da. So we better be careful about what we feed it.
Right.
Because will it take that information, and then because you've contributed it voluntarily, will it then put out information to someone else?
I don't get a sense right now that that's how it works.
Well,
But
okay.
I mean, it may, in the next iteration, it may have stored that data and is part of the data set that gets processed for GPT-5.
But does anybody know if it's actually
4.5.
no? We're part of their experiment to train this thing, so I'm sure it's taking
I
our
think,
inputs,
yeah.
and so
It's just like with the Tesla cars. You drive the car around. I enabled the button for
feedback.
all my videos to be
Yeah.
uploaded to Tesla, so they're gathering information about all the roads that I drive on. And
Why would you do
all that
that? Why
stuff.
would you feed this? Why would you allow them to have that information, Rob? Come on now.
to help train the platform to be able to know enough to be able to drive the car for me.
So, do you have maps turned on in your Google phone so that it tracks everywhere you go?
I'm not that concerned about it. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not paranoid about that stuff. But then on the other hand, maybe I should be, but I'm currently not. I'm trying to learn from this as much as I can about how this works.
Yeah.
And I'm also seeing signs in this vehicle that give me a little glimpse into the future, of what we're probably going to see in a lot of other technology deployments, of this advanced capability, where, I think a big thing that we're going to see is technology is going to be used to enforce the law,
Mm.
in a greater degree than what we currently have seen. So as I see this car, if I put it on autopilot, the car will only drive 5 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Right.
It won't go over that.
Well,
So just think about that as you think about what the future might look like if, let's say the government decides you can't drive a car anymore. It has to be on autopilot, or it
well,
has to be on full self-driving as a requirement. Then that means you can't speed anymore.
well, when it comes to all of this AI stuff, I'm not going to put anything into it that I wouldn't want a competitor to know about, because I don't know what's happening with that collection of that data.
Yeah, well,
So from a podcast production standpoint, I could care less. But from a business standpoint,
Mhm.
and we're getting a little off the train here a little bit, but it's for sure something to think about. What if all of a sudden a lot of podcasters are using this, and you ask the AI, give me 5 ideas that are being circulated right now as top podcast ideas. And all of a sudden it spits out 5 new show names. You pick one of them, it's not available. Then on the next thing you know, someone send you an email saying, hey, we had this show in development. Where did you get your information for this show idea? So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I don't trust this thing completely.
Yeah, and if you think about it right now, the podcast hosting platforms, they don't really do any content moderation, on the publishing side.
No, I would.
So,
but
right.
But I'm not going to use AI to do content moderation. I'm not
No,
going
but
to do that.
No, but what's happening with these brand suitability platforms, whatever,
Oh.
is they could be used in that method, right? Where they analyze the show and say, sorry, you can't publish this because it violates the rules that we have in our content policy,
Right.
Because it's analyzed it and it's scored it, right? Based
Right.
on this GARM that exists right now that's being used at YouTube and
Yep.
other platforms, that it could say, sorry, you can't publish this.
Well, thank God advertisers don't drive the majority of podcasters' lives.
Right. And that's the trade-off that we're looking at with this brand suitability, brand safety stuff, is that it could be used in that way, and it may in the future.
And this is why we
I
have
have no way of predicting that.
This is why we have value for value. This is why we can get direct
yeah.
response to this show by people that are listening on a new podcast app at podcastapps.com.
And it's,
Not perfect,
No.
but
all these things are probably likely coming. I just don't know when and how much resistance is going to be put against them, under what time frame, and are people even going to understand what's happening here to be able to put up a resistance against it? So or is it just going to happen like what has happened with our mobile phones today?
Well, I think what will really happen is that in 10 years, because the way this thing is headed, the story I think I told this before. When I was in the Navy, I wanted this particular feature, and the group we were working with told me it was 10 years away. And then when GPUs came on the scene, that time frame changed from 10 to 3 years, and it was very, very expensive in those early days. I mean, like in the millions of dollars for an implementation. And then as time has advanced, now the cost has come down to the point where the employment of that is at of like 1/100th of the cost. And so this is the same thing that's going to happen with this technology. It's really, really expensive right now. It takes a lot of resources, and then at some point it'll be right here. It'll be right in the phone, and you'll have to choose whether or not you want help or not, and it'll be baked into all the services we use, and then we become just droids of the machine. And
Right. Yeah. Todd, did you also see this company called Adthos? That is actually creating, it's the world's first broadcast quality AI generated audio advertising.
Oh,
So
really?
this-
What's the name of it?
It's called Adthos.
THOS.
Yeah, ADTHOS.com.
Seems like they would have a .ai domain name.
Yeah, well, they're .com, but it's you can go in and select a language. It looks like Dutch, English, German, and Chinese currently. You can auto generate it and then select the type of voice. It can be default, urban, gold, or platinum. I'm not quite sure what those designations
I'm
are.
sure this is going to be they're out of the Netherlands.
Right. But they will auto generate ads for you with the talent. So I guess what they've done is they've gone out and worked with a bunch of pro voiceover talent and created a bunch of clones of voiceover talent, and they're now enabling one to auto generate the ads based
Yeah,
on
that's just what we need right here. Someone to generate our ads for us with a bot.
and they actually sound, they sound pretty good. I mean,
Okay.
some of the voices sound pretty believable.
All right, let's get a voice here. Here's one.
Rocco.
Ah, welcome. Come in. Weather nice.
The listing didn't mention Rocco and his mankini
You like?
that's
It's
horrible.
a sexy time, no?
and the inflatable
3 things you'll never hear at Orange Personal Fit.
That's okay, Mrs. Jones.
It just has this overlay music that's horrible. Why do they do that?
I mean, it's still a little on the rough side, but some of them are.
You sure it's country night?
Yeah, Mondays are karaoke, Tuesdays are sports, Wednesdays are Don Ho nights, which means tonight is disco night.
Then you should make your night spot Orange Shoes Saloon.
$99.95 per campaign. So not inexpensive to use.
No, but it's not inexpensive to hire voice talent either.
Well, podcasters shouldn't be hiring voice talent. They should be their own voice talent for their ads.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, not surprised. And those probably came from original voices. Someone probably read a whole bunch of copy and.
Yep.
It's probably. I wonder if I just got a copyright violation. So,
sure, it's not the first time.
Athos. Oh, they're using a Spartan helmet on there. Oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But, well, I don't know. We'll see. So what else is going on in the podcasting space, Rob? You've had your head down meeting with a lot of people. Anything exciting?
Yeah, I've just been talking to a lot of folks trying to, I'm now able, and I think I've said this on the episode before, I'm now able to dig into a lot of the other hosting platforms and have a better idea of how they work. I was able to spend time with the Buzzsprout folks, and I've gotten demos from Spreaker and others out there too that are kind of showing me their back end and what their strengths and their weaknesses are and what's going on, so I can be much more knowledgeable about competitors out there. Because working for one platform, you tend to be a little siloed into that platform. And a lot of people don't share a lot with you unless you can get access somehow to another podcast that's hosted somewhere else. It's a little hard to see what the competitors are doing. So,
right.
Yeah.
There was an interesting thing, and I don't understand what was put in the. We got a boost that came in. Mike Dell says, "Sounds terrible, like a robot." AI ads.
Well, some of them do have that kind of feeling to them.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So I don't know if here, let me do this before we get in there.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
So I don't know if James got his wires crossed or what, but in the email that came out today, he said the 27th Annual Webby Awards nominees have been announced. Voting for the People's Choice Podcast Awards kickoff today. There's only one People's Choice Podcast Awards. That's podcastawards.com. So I don't know if someone's doing a trademark violation or what, but he said a new award, Webby Podcast Company of the Year, will recognize the company with the most nominations and wins across the podcast categories. Organizations include Audible, Wondery, Wait What, and iHeart. Of course, they all paid $300 or $400 to enter. But the voting for the People's Choice Podcast Awards are not kicking off today. That doesn't happen until July 1st. So I don't understand, unless the Webby Awards are stealing my tagline here. I went to look for it, and I just didn't see anything on the Webby site that showed that they called this the People's Choice.
I don't believe that they actually are using that word, Todd. I think they're using a different word to describe that. I saw that as well, and I don't think that they're actually using that specific word.
So I don't know where that came from, because this is the Podcast Awards and the Webby Awards are two complete separate entities.
Yeah.
So, and it was funny because I had run an ad today talking about registration being open. So I don't know if he just got his wires crossed, saw my ad, and then somehow some copy got in there. I don't know, but it's just a little it was a little weird to me when I read that this morning.
Okay, I think you're reading it with a certain vision to it. It says People's Voice Awards.
People's Voice.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
choice. It's voice.
Right. Voice.
Oh, isn't that funny how the brain does that?
Yeah.
I saw that, and I just said, I saw people's, and then I immediately threw the word choice in there. Well, I stand corrected. Oh.
It's close.
It's close,
but it kind of means the same thing.
It's different. No, it's not. It's completely different. Voice and choice is, that there's two different things there. But yeah, it did kind of throw me for. I was like, what? You know, I was like, so it's kind of weird how the brain tricks you like that. And I that's the third time I read that. So my apologies there.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
Boy, it's really convenient to have that little sound clip, isn't
It
it?
is. It's absolutely. And so yeah, and you just watch the news lately. It's been kind of slow. It's been a little bit, not a lot going on here.
Todd, did you see the post that James put out on the discussion on the show?
Yep.
That we had around alternate enclosures?
Yep. And here's my response to that. Still not doing it. And here's the reason why. We have an internal policy that we will never, ever modify podcasters' audio content. What they upload to us is what they upload to us. I'm not repurposing, not reconditioning, not re-encoding to make alternate enclosures automated on our system. Not doing it. You know how much more money that costs to do that? How much added cost that adds to if I was to do that? Some podcast hosts do. When the audio gets uploaded to them, they dumb it down.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's a way to maintain the business model too, because some podcasters will upload, let's say, a very
256K,
they don't know any different.
Right.
And I believe Buzzsprout does this, and Spreaker has done it in the past too, where they will there's like a maximum file format that they have on the platform that they support.
I
So
saw
when
the
you
art.
uploaded it, it transcodes it.
Believe me, I understand every angle long
yeah.
before he published that post of what's possible and what you can do and how you can make it easy. It's just an internal policy of ours. We never have touched content creators' audio. Because guess what they do? They go thermonuclear on you.
But Todd, that may be a legacy perspective too.
Okay.
I worked at Spreaker for a very long time, and Spreaker had that philosophy too. And you look at Buzzsprout today.
But Buzzsprout
I don't think
makes
that
that
a lot
public.
of people are pushing back on that.
But people that host at Buzzsprout know they do that. They have opted in to have their audio jacked to it.
Or they just don't know any better. That's the other truth.
Well, that's a sad statement right there.
Well, yeah, but it's also indicative of where we are in the medium right now. There's increasing numbers of people getting into the medium that want to get into the medium that are just not that technically knowledgeable about all these little details.
Yeah,
like mono versus stereo.
Sure. We could opt them in. Yeah, we could opt them in and do all this. But again, say we're going to save all this bandwidth. I don't believe that in the least.
Right.
Because I don't want to. Okay, we're not doing it. Someone who wants to do it, go ahead, please. Go ahead and lead the way and spend all the development time and make that happen. And but we're not doing it. I don't care if there's a use case at this point. We're not doing it. A year, maybe we'll do it, but I'm not doing it now.
Yeah. Well, I guess if the, and really the issue was more about multiple enclosure support, right?
Right.
So let's say you want to upload a audio version and a video version of your show into one feed.
Right.
That's a possibility, right? If you had support for multiple enclosures.
But if you're already doing an audio and video, you have separate feeds already. So why?
Yeah, but it is true that you are going to be splitting your audience, right, into two feeds instead of.
That's the
having
way everyone today that does an audio and video true podcast.
Well, that's how it's been done
right.
historically. But I think James's point is that let's aggregate the consumption of a show into one feed.
Okay,
so
splitting
the audience.
Yeah, well, again, two apps supporting that ability to split it. You're still going to have. That's my point. You're still
Well,
going to
it's-
have a standalone feed for Apple and everyone else.
Well-
If you are a true video podcast and have an audio podcast, you still, no matter what happens, let's say I turn on alternate closures today, boom,
Mhm.
it's on. You still have to have 2 feeds. You still have to have 2 feeds.
Why is that?
Okay, then throw away Apple Podcast. You have
Well, that's a secondary discussion to this, which is support for those tags being recognized, right?
but again,
So
I still
it's the same core issue that
Right.
exists around the Podcast Standards Project.
Oh, I
right?
know, but the thing is,
Right.
I can get easier adoption on these other features on other stuff. This is not a battle I need to fight at this point.
Well, I would like to see video podcasts come back more.
Well,
than what
but
we've
people are
seen.
using video podcasts already, and most people that have a video podcast put them up on YouTube.
I
So
know.
so
That's but if you think about it,
Is-
that feed could be fed to YouTube. and
not
they
all
could get the
podcast
audio
hosts
and-
will support video podcasts. There's only a few of us that actually support video podcasts.
They were the ones that were the platforms that existed in the early first 5 years of podcasting. Right.
So if I'm supporting a small number of shows that are doing video podcasts and I'm not going to touch other people's audio, again, it
Mhm.
doesn't make no sense.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, it doesn't make any sense. James doesn't have to support it, doesn't have to explain it, doesn't have to educate it. He
Yeah,
doesn't
but
have to
that's
do
the
that.
same argument for a lot of the tags.
But this
that
stuff
are
is
being-
okay,
being proposed right now
Of-
by the
of course, but
by
that's
the Podcasting
new.
2.0 project.
That's
right?
new stuff. We have a
this-
solution already for audio and video podcasts. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is already established. I don't have to retrain folks on a new tech. This is already a solution that works. We're talking about new stuff. We're adding new stuff.
I think we're forcing people to think more about just putting it up on YouTube.
Then great. Let's do a video podcast, have a video podcast feed that's going to have to go to Apple. You have to have an audio feed that's going to have to go to Apple if you want to be on Apple. And yes, if you want to work with another host that provides one feed, 2 things where you can be in 2 apps, great. Then your only video podcast is only going to be in 2 apps. It's not going to be an Apple podcast. You still have to have a second feed to be an Apple podcast. That's my point.
Well, yeah. I mean, unless Apple supports it, right?
They will never support alternate enclosures. You can't even get them to admit the stuff they are supporting now.
Well, I don't know that we know that for sure because it's never been done. So, I mean, Apple may look at it and say, "Well, that means that we can ingest just one feed."
Well,
and
when I
split it
when I
into the-
talk to Apple next time, I'll ask them.
yeah, I would ask them. I mean, are they open to the idea of having a multiple enclosure RSS feed? It may simplify.
But
their
again,
process.
the listeners, then you have more choices that makes confusion factor adds for the listener. The listeners know they're getting a video podcast when the show says video. They know they're getting audio and it says audio. They're going to have one app and they're going to say, oh, I got to click back and forth between audio and video?
Well, it's an option, right?
Okay. Well, again,
I mean, in the early days of podcasting, as we both know, there were different bitrate versions of the video podcasts. I know that the
audio.
Vision 3 platform and
Yep.
Twit for many years had like 4 different RSS feeds
Right.
for each of their formats.
Sure.
Right. So they had an MP3 file feed.
Yep.
They had a low, mid,
Yep.
and high bitrate version of their video
Those
that they would put out.
That's bygone time.
No, it is, but it is an example of what James is talking about here, where we're putting that all into one feed. Does make a little bit of sense.
Well,
But
for me, that ship has sailed. You're not going to convince me at this point to implement it. It's just
Okay.
because
Yeah.
you still the key is you still have to maintain 2 feeds. With everything else that we have done so far in the Podcasting 2.0 initiative, It's in addition to what's in the existing feed.
Right.
So this new features into existing feed.
Mhm.
If everyone tomorrow says we're going to switch to have one feed have both audio and video in it, yep, we'll do it. But
Okay.
that's not the case. I still have to maintain 2 feeds if you're truly doing video podcasts.
In the short run, right? I agree with you.
Yeah. And do I want to have to explain that to a content creator that already his technical knowledge is not that high? It's a huge support issue. Huge.
I think it's the same argument for every new tag that's in the podcasting 2.0.
But
initiative.
again, I'm not causing duplicate work. It's all in one feed. Yeah, of course it's education, but I want to educate on that stuff and not have to fix something that isn't broke.
Or do we not want to host video files?
Oh, most podcast hosts don't.
I know, but as a podcast hosting platform, does this mean that you don't want to host video files because it's too expensive?
Oh, it is expensive. So, of course, that's why
I mean,
most
is that the real reason?
that's
I
why
guess is
most
my
podcast
question.
hosts don't do it.
Right.
You get a big
At
show.
least the more modern ones. If you think about after probably any podcast host that launched probably or started up prior to maybe 2009
hmm
doesn't support video.
And let's really think about it based upon at least my model and Libsyn's model and some others. The
Mhm.
storage component precludes people from doing video unless they go to a pro plan, which then they have to pay for the bandwidth.
And on some of the platforms, that's expensive plan.
That's
I
right.
know at Libsyn, I think the only plan that you can get that supports video, I think is like $79 a month.
All of our plans support video, but it really gets into the pro plan where you can have unlimited storage, and it's, that base is at $100 a month. But then you
Yeah.
have to pay for the bandwidth. You get a certain allotment. But, because we have customers that are on audio that do.
So it is an economics
Yeah,
question,
they-
really, more than it is a technical question
Oh, but
or a deployment question. Because the other option that we could do too is to have an enclosure, or not enclosure tag, but a tag that would link to a YouTube video, right?
well, it won't physically link to it would be the embed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be an embed, but that URL pathway or whatever could be embedded in the RSS feed.
Well, the
Taken and displayed in
they
the
could
listening
display it in the
platform.
player with a YouTube player.
Right.
Yeah. Or
Right.
any other normal embed, JavaScript embed
Right.
or whatever, for sure.
Right.
But then again, it's not a podcast anymore. It's just a show because you can't store it on your phone and listen to it on the airplane or watch it on the airplane.
Yeah, I just
So-
feel a lot of interest and a lot of pressure building around increasing numbers of podcasters wanting to do video. You start looking at StreamYard and you're thinking
Sure.
at Riverside and all that stuff like that. And those are becoming
But-
increasingly where people go.
But
to create podcasts.
99% of them are just doing live streaming like we are on YouTube, and they're not doing anything else with a video for a podcast perspective.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are on that, but
It's not,
right.
and it's not available as a true. It's not available on Apple Podcasts. That's the key. If you're doing video and it's not available on Apple Podcasts, then you just have a video show.
But
Technically,
increasingly people are calling those YouTube shows
Again,
podcasts.
technically.
Look at what YouTube just did. They created a whole section in there
yawn.
called podcasts.
Right.
Right.
So,
So yeah. So things may be changing.
well, again, it's most of the shows that are in that podcast area are video, so nothing has changed there.
Yep.
At least, they're still rolling stuff out, so time will tell. But
Yeah, and who knows when the audio portion of this gets actually rolled out too.
I'm looking
There's
at
no
this.
word on
I'm
that.
looking at it today, and once again, video, 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 video. No audio. No audio.
And if you see any what looks like audio, it's actually not. It's actually audio that's been converted into a video file. So
Yeah. Well, there's yeah.
let's not
I'm
have any
hovering over these.
confusion here
I'm
that-
hovering over these, and these are all actual.
as far as I know, there is no pure audio on YouTube
Right.
currently, unless it's music. So, yeah, and it's all
Yeah.
streamed too. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no downloading going on.
There might be a few here that because I'm hovering over something here, and it's not.
It's not video.
It's not coming
like a
up video.
still- It's like a still image kind of thing.
Well, let me go over here to the lot.
This is a,
Oh,
a
yep.
crime
That is
investigation.
that's still video.
Yep.
So on the YouTube side, you have to have, if you want to be in the YouTube podcast area, you have to have video still. So
So is that one there a video too?
yeah,
The one you just had on the screen?
yep. I'm hovering over them, and you can see
Okay.
the. I guess you could probably do a podcast and then have a just have a loop of ducks walking across the screen or something like that.
Yeah, I think you could be animated.
Yeah,
Right.
just have some ducks, but you know,
Some of them will have like a wave that is waving.
so you know, it is what it is. You know, again, I'm not too worried about it at this point. But you just have
No.
to keep on educating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk more about the Podcast Standards Project or if
Nothing
you wanna
really,
share anything.
nothing really there to announce yet. You know, it's just some conversations going on behind the scenes about. Well, at least I'm trying to get some conversations going on behind the scenes. Let's get organized, and
Yeah,
there
it's
is.
going to be interesting to see what the scope of that organization evolves into too. What areas is it going to be? You know, is it the same issue with like the Podcast Academy? Is it catering to the needs of the industry, or is it?
Well, that's what it's an industry group. It's, you know, so.
Yeah.
But,
But the-
we've got a few more participants. So again, it remains Blueberry, Buzzsprout, Captivate, Red Circle, RSS.com, Transistor, at some point, Acast, at some point, Castos, CuriCaster, Podfriend, Podverse, Steno.fm, coming soon, Pocket Cast, and of course, media partner Pod News. So, again, coming soon. They haven't been certified yet. They haven't they haven't got to the first level of the requirements that was set forth by the group to be AKA a certified podcast.
Mhm.
So they've committed to doing that, but those features are not yet in their platforms.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, it's something that when Acast gets their stuff online, that'll be a big bump because, you know, they'll have, again, but the tags they have to implement are, you know, some of the harder ones to educate on. So one of them is.
I mean, Acast is a significant player in the
Oh, yeah.
industry, but they're certainly not hosting the largest number of shows. So as far as the impact across,
They have a lot of
numbers
high-end shows.
Yeah, exactly. They're shows that are, you know, highly impactful and to be, but they're not on the scale of, you know, Spotify for podcasters.
Oh, yeah. Woo-hoo.
They changed the name. They've dropped Anchor. So
That's great.
I don't know. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of shed that baggage.
Yeah, I think it's good.
So I think what the number 2 platform now, as far as numbers of shows, I guess is Buzzsprout, right?
Yep.
They picked up a lot of newer shows. I think they showed on their website that they were picking up, I think, like 4,000 new shows a month or something like that.
That's a big number.
It is a big number right now
but they're
Yeah.
spending massive amounts of money on SEM. So
on online marketing, right?
yeah, every search you do, they're and it's paying off for them. Obviously, I predicted they were spending $500,000 a month on SEM.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
It says top podcast hosting companies by episode share in March of 2023. It looks like Spotify for podcasters has 23.1% of new episodes published,
Right.
and Buzzsprout drops down dramatically down to 9.2%
Mm-hmm.
of all episodes published in March. And Spreaker's number 3 at 6.5%. And Omni Studio, which I was surprised to see them this high up in that chart, is 4.8%. And Libsyn brings up the top 5 at 4.7.
Yep.
They're neck and neck with Omni Studio, which I was surprised because I thought Omni Studio was a pretty small hosting platform.
Well, I
It's
get
just larger shows, I guess.
yeah.
Or ones that are publishing more frequently.
Right.
Might be a better way of saying it, which tends to be, I think Omni Studio tends to cater a lot to a radio show or radio type podcasts. So that may be the answer to that. There's a lot of radio shows that are like 5 days a week. So, and then Megaphone is number 6 at 4%, and Podbean is number 7.
Well,
at
if you Megaphone, you might as
3.9%.
well. That's the same as essentially the same as Spotify. I mean, not same as Spotify, but same as
Well, it's the same company, right?
Yeah.
But it's 2 different platforms, though.
Time will
So-
tell what happens.
Yeah, definitely. But that list is long. There's
Oh, I know it's huge.
like 231 platforms that James is
231?
tracking.
That's crazy.
No, 232. The last one at 232 is Radio New Zealand. And I guess this is all done by John Spurlock. So I guess he's the one that created the script that tracks this, I guess.
Yeah, like John. John's a good dude.
Yeah.
So let's real quick here look at where the numbers are at. Actually, let me go load my Slack channel here. Gotta find my link. Let's see here. I go over here and grab this, and let me see here. Is this the one I want? Maybe. No, but I want that one. I want the raw data. Well, okay, here we go. Up a little bit. Podcasts with new episodes last 30 days, 387,000. New podcasts. So yeah, that's up about 20.
So that's in the last 30 days. Publish
Yeah.
an episode in the last 30 days.
Yeah, it's up a little.
Just under
120.
400,000.
Yeah, 232,000, almost 224,000 last 7 days. But the number that still remains way, way off is 471,739 podcasts with new episodes in the last 60 days. There's 12,794 with the value block, 27,000 with the transcript block, 34,000 podcasts with the funding block, 16,000 podcasts with the chapters block, 74 podcasts with a medium of music, 8120 podcasts with a medium of video. So basically, there's a new medium tag that some people are implementing. We'll have that here soon. 2.2 million new podcast episodes in the last 30 days. So there is a bit of a, if you look at it, there's a little bit of a bump in a couple of areas. So last 30 days, that number appears to be climbing. So let me see here. Is that we want to do the blue line. So we've seen a bump over like March 14th, 376, and then we're up in the 380s. So yeah, so there is a bit of an upswing, which is a good sign. Last 14 days is pretty flat. Last 10 days it looks like it's climbing a little bit. But we definitely hit a hole. There was a big hole right around the New Year's. That's kind of normal too, where people take off from Christmas through about the 10th. Those that produced during those times, boy, they made bank. Let's see, what is this one? Yeah, and this number about the last 3 days. If you go back and look to 2022 November, last 3 days peak was about 117, and right now it's about 124. So a little bit of an increase, and a continued increase of funding, increase of transcripts, increase of chapters, value block. That's all climbing, but feed count changes continue to. Probably some cleanup was done there again, but again, it's new feeds on a day basis. Let's see, is that a day? Yeah, about 1,600 new feeds a day. As high as 2,000. So we're doing good. And these are new episodes in the last X number of days. So still pretty flat.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, did you see the article in Vanity Fair about podcasting?
Yeah. Talk about someone that doesn't have a clue.
Right. The dumb money is gone.
Yeah.
Is podcast boom going to bust?
And talking about 4 million podcasts. I'm like, yeah, you got that right.
Fewer acquisitions, smaller budgets, diminishing deal making.
That's all true.
Not all bad.
Great for independent content creators that don't have a budget. Absolutely fabulous for them.
There's been no recession among listeners, they say.
Oh, the listeners are growing.
Yes. And there's still more room to grow.
Of course. Famous, that's just how it goes with podcasting right now, because, it's like one of those things. When we're on, and when we're, when they think we're slacking off, then
always do the opposite. Right, Todd?
Yep.
So lots of people take time off during the holidays.
Yep.
Todd's out there saying, ramp it up, baby.
That's right. Keep on cranking.
Keep on cranking. So when the economy's down, now's the time to get going with a new show.
But there is
all the big guys are resting on the sidelines right now.
Yep. It's time to go, go, go.
Yep.
Nothing's changed there. Of course, we've been telling this audience that for a while.
Yeah.
So you've had any epiphanies when you're talking to any of these companies? Like, oh, wow, that's cool. Or just kind of like, oh, okay. There's not a lot of differentiator between companies at this point.
No, that's true. That's right. But there definitely are differences. And there's definitely differences in the philosophy towards publishing podcasts that is quite different amongst all the platforms. So, it's difficult, I think, for somebody that's new to podcasting to look at all of them and say, well, which is the right one for me?
Right.
I think it's a hard choice to do that based on just looking at the website.
Well, that's why they just pick one off the Google search.
Yeah. It's also, I think, definitely a recommendation. It's the same thing that has grown the podcast listening side as personal recommendation.
Yep.
A friend telling a friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's what grows the podcast hosting platforms probably as much as anything.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's based on another podcaster that had a good experience on a particular platform. That's where the existing podcast hosting platforms have an advantage, because they have a reputation, they have a network of shows that have been using them for a long time. And if somebody new asks them, who do you recommend? Well, go to Blueberry or go to Libsyn or go to Buzzsprout or whoever.
Yep.
Right. And I have a hard time now that I'm not aligned with any platform to say, well, this is the best platform for you, and this one or that one. I tend to now just say, I would go look at these 3 or these 4 and pick the one that looks the best to you. I can share details on how each one of them work, but I think a lot of people are price conscious right now, and some platforms support free. But I have the philosophy that free is not necessarily the best way to get into podcasting, because it puts you in a situation where you have a way out, right? You can say, well, I didn't pay for this, so
Yep.
I'm not going to keep going.
That's why most of those free platforms have a sea of dead.
So it's an easy way to quit if you don't have to commit.
We've always said that we're not going to compete on price. We're
Right.
going to compete on features and tools and customer support and all those things that go along with it. And that is why, even though we're now nowhere near the biggest podcast host, that's why we have incredible sustainment rate. That's, our shows come over and podcast for years. They don't come over and podcast for weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want as a platform.
And,
Yeah.
the churn rate being very, very low. And when the churn rate is low, then, you can make predictions on where you're going to be in 2 years. So that's, you don't eat the entire horse in a day, so it's one of those things.
Yeah, and all of the hosting platforms are concerned around, churn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is basically an internal term for podcasters that start and then pod fade,
Right.
and close their accounts or whatever and stop producing. So
Or don't even get to episode 1.
right, but they have an account,
Right.
in the system for months on end.
Yep.
but they never actually get to the publish part,
Yep.
right? To the push out one episode or something, right? There's a lot of that happens too.
And it's because everyone has a grand idea they're going to do a show. And then, it's like talking to a new customer today. He's been a customer for a year, but they finally got their production ready and they're ready to go.
Mhm.
So it's,
Sometimes it takes a long time. I know
Yeah.
I've been talking to new podcasters off and on occasionally it's not unusual to talk to somebody for a year before they actually launch their show.
right, which to me is crazy. And I think about my
Yeah.
journey, and I launched in 24 hours. So, and I had
I don't know that I would necessarily advise that, but
had nary a
yeah.
clue.
Yeah, I don't know that I would advise that approach, but that's something you can do, right?
Well, you can. Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't get in and create some art on Canva and come up with a name and
Mhm.
description, and you can do that probably in a couple of hours and you're done.
Yeah. And back in those days, I think I used Microsoft Paint to make my first album art.
I still use Paint, so right.
Oh my God. I didn't. Do
Well,
they
for a lot
they
of
still make that?
purposes, yeah, actually they've been adding features to it. So
Oh, that's funny.
or Notepad is the other one I use a lot of too, and it now Notepad in Windows now has tabs. I don't know if you knew that. Or not.
No, I don't.
But yeah, so you can have one file that has multiple tabs in it, kind of like Excel or whatever, right? So it's kind of interesting what they've
Well,
done.
Well, Rob, we are here at the end,
Yeah.
and we'll be back for one more show next week before we head off to NAB. Haven't heard anything about our session recording from Dan and group, so
We should reach out.
we'll see if we can get a hold of that at some point. But
Yeah, didn't he put out all the sessions in the app?
I don't know. I didn't see
I thought he
any notice on that, to be honest with you.
So maybe we could go in and just play that into a recorder or
Maybe.
our Roadcaster to capture it. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Hopefully we'll see. I have to look for it. Okay. I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter. And of course, just as a reminder, go over to podcastapps.com, get involved in the Podcasting 2.0 ecosphere, value for value, be lit and live, do all the cool things the cool kids are doing in podcasting, have fun with it. As you heard the boost come in earlier, Dave Jones and Mike Dell listening live, but don't forget that people stream these shows and as they listen, and you get a what can be called a live streaming sat, where people are actually listening by the minute and send sats by the minute. So definitely go over there and pick up one of these cool apps. I'm recommending Fountain for consumption, Podverse for live. Try them both. Give it a try. Rob?
Yeah, I can be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and you can send me an email if you want, rob.greenlee@gmail.com. you want to reach out. And then I also have robgreenlee.com too. Now all the social platforms too. So if you want to reach out, and say hi or whatever, or give us any kind of feedback on the topics we talk about, and we'd be happy to talk about it on the show.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week here on the New Media Show at newmediashow.com. Go over to follow and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.